My name is John Passfield, and I'm going to read from my novel, Pauline Johnson, Know Who I Am. The title of this reading will be Pauline Johnson, Video 5, The Legends We Share. Here's the cover of the novel, Pauline Johnson, Know Who I Am, a novel by John Passfield. That's a photo of Pauline Johnson in 1912, a snapshot a year before her death. Here's the summary on the back cover of the novel. Pauline Johnson was born on the Six Nations Reserve in Ontario, Canada. Was she American, British, or Canadian? Was she Mohawk, English, or mixed? She added up her assets and liabilities and decided that the Pauline that the world would see would be Pauline the performance artist, Pauline on stage. As for the real Pauline, she would keep that to herself. Here's a note on terminology, which I printed on the back of the title page. Such terms as First Nations, Aboriginal, and Indigenous were not in common usage at the time in which the events of the novel take place. To refer to her mother's people, the historical Pauline Johnson used the terms English and white. To refer to her father's people, she used the terms Indian, Mohawk, and red. While the novel is fiction, I've used Pauline Johnson's terms throughout the novel in the interest of historical accuracy. The legends which the main character, Pauline Johnson, reviews come out of a relationship between two people. One is old and one is middle-aged. One is male and one is female. One speaks Nootka and one speaks no Aboriginal language. One is from the center of the continent of North America and one is from the extreme west. So what do they have in common? Why and how do these legends speak to both? No doubt you and I are very different from the two who share these legends, and very different from one another. So, how do these same legends speak to you and to me? Well, there are 7 legends in the novel, and I will read from 4 just to keep this video to a reasonable length. First of all, some background. In chapter 11, page 87, we read this. Just let me find it here. Here we go. 3 chiefs on a London sidewalk, a breath of fresh air from home, here to speak to the great white emperor, surrounded by London reporters, flash powder popping and questions galore, a couple of war whoops faintly heard from the back of the crowd. I speak a few words of Nootka. The 3 chiefs look at me and smile. None of them speaks Mohawk, but neither do I. I chat in English for a while with the one who is called Chief Joe. A reporter asked me a simple question. You obviously speak the Indian language. Will you be interpreting between the 3 chiefs and the king? Well, a cultural misunderstanding there. There is no one Indian language, of course, or Aboriginal language, but many Aboriginal languages. So the 3 chiefs speak Nootka and English. Pauline Johnson speaks English, but does not speak Mohawk. Okay, then we go to chapter 1, page 3, again as background to the legends. Meeting Chief Joe Capilano. Time has run away with the years. Mutual friends bring us back together again. We renew the bond of London. I've often thought of our meeting when last I was there. A sense of peace in each other's presence. We are both quite fond of tea. We talk of his audience with the great white emperor. Did anything come of their talk? When does anything of importance actually change? And then on page 8 of chapter 1, just one more background passage. The chief is not a man for chatter. He would rather let others talk. Will he share these legends with me? A person of a different culture? A person from a different place? If this land is alive with stories, I would like to know. Well, the chief does agree to talk to this lady, Pauline. And so let's go to chapter 2, page 11, for the first of these legends, which I'm going to read today. These are legends that Pauline Johnson is reviewing in her mind as she thinks of many other things. In fact, she thinks of her whole life during the course of the novel. The old chief and I are walking along a trail. We stop and look at two peaks in the distance. The chief has never heard what these peaks are called by other people. The other people of the area have never heard what the chief's people call these two peaks among themselves. He takes a puff on his pipe, looks off on the distance, and speaks. Then we go to page 14. In the days before there were mountains, a great man had two fine daughters. They were children who had grown to womanhood. The great man decided to hold a feast in honor of his two daughters. He invited the people of every friendly tribe. Then we go to page, that was 14, we go to page 16. The two girls approached their father. Father, we would ask of you a favor. You have invited all of the people who live in peace. Please invite all of the people of the hostile tribe. Let all of these people come and partake of our meat and our drink. Let all peoples agree that there will never be more war. Then we go to the final episode of that legend as the chief is telling Pauline as she's rethinking it in her thoughts. There was a vote among the peaceful people. These people are warlike. Has the great chief lost his mind? He has invited a hostile tribe. But such was the great chief's leadership that his warriors laid down their weapons and fished for food. They laid down their weapons and collected the wood for the fires. They looked up and saw the warlike boats approaching. The faces in the war boats showed great tension. Would there be bloodshed in the midst of the people's rejoicing? Was it wrong to invite their enemies to their feast? Well, the legend doesn't stop there in the original version, if you'd like to read it in Pauline Johnson's words, but I stop it there in her thoughts. Let's go to another legend. This will be chapter 10, page 75. I'll just have to find it here. Yeah, here we are. Great. The old chief told the story with his hands. The power of the tree, the power of the stone. Every people in the area believes in these powers. They will tell you the story, but none will approach this spot. It is a spot where the witch woman was thwarted and turned to stone. And then the next segment, amid other thoughts that she's comparing and contrasting with these legends, there was a witch among the people. There was hatred, war, and disease. She moved up and down the coast. She turned everyone she met into a stone. She was captured. She was killed. She herself became a stone. If you walk near that stone, she'll be sure to capture you. Then we move on to page 80. A young man died in the prime of life. He was generous, warm, and kind. He brought warmth and food and fire to everyone. When he died, he was deeply mourned. When he died, the young man was transformed into a tree. Shade and shelter, sap and firewood, bows and arrows, nests and canoes. If you walk near that tree, he will be sure to give you life. And then we go to page 82. Here we are. As you live, so surely shall you die. As you live, so shall you spend eternity. Shall you be turned into a stone, hard and dry and without a heart? Shall you be turned into a tree, offering shade and heat and food for all humankind? Spend your life among the trees. As you live, so shall you spend eternity. So let's go on to another legend then. This will be chapter 12, the legend of the spear, page 91. I have to, of course, search through for these page numbers because the whole novel is Pauline Johnson having basically a 50,000 word thought about her entire life. And so she spaces these images out among other images because images comment on one another by comparison and contrast. So that's why they're so far apart as printed on the page. They're far apart in a sense in Pauline Johnson's mind, but they're all interlayering. They're all commenting on one another. The chief was in a storytelling mood. We were walking along beside the shore. The elders tell of an unknown river. The younger ones search for it in vain. Such stories are told around the campfires. A story is often told of an elk bone spear. Page 93. A man had a number of spears in his armory. He hunted on land and fished in the sea. He was equally skillful in hunting and fishing for food. His prized spear was a weapon which had never failed him. It had been carved from an elk bone long before he was born. It had a woven and plaited and oiled cedar rope. Then we go to page 96. All at once the man saw a great seal. It was of a size much larger than any of which he had heard. He maneuvered his craft to the perfect location to strike. The elk spear went home, and the large seal gasped aloud and plunged into the water and swam for his life. The craft was dragged across the water at extreme speed. A tremendous jerk at the cord, and a lunge, and the great seal disappeared. The hands were empty that had thrown the elk bone spear. And then the last installment, the last image in this story on page 98. The man searched and searched for his ancestors' elk bone spear. He had other spears, but the elk bone spear was the best of his hunting tools. He searched at high tide and at low. Would he ever find the elk bone spear and the woven rope? He had made spears himself, but he could never hope to make a spear as sharp and as accurate as that of his ancestors. One night, while camping, he saw a pulsing glow in the sky. Was this an omen about the lost and lamented spear? And then in chapter 14, 107, the story of the Isle of Dead Men. We stood on the bridge, the old chief and I. We looked across what I called the Lost Lagoon to what he always called the Isle of Dead Men. None of our people will live on it now, he said. There was a time when it was claimed by every tribe. The sun was setting on the island as he told his tale. And then we go to page 109. Warriors hated. Warriors fought with arrows, bows, and spears, pierced ribs and cracked skulls, fighting in groups and man to man. Neither side could gain the victory. Neither side could claim the land. Canoes with bodies bobbed in the tide, dead men's blood lapping at the shore. At last a tribal elder asked to speak. Then we go to 112. Here we are. We offer peace, said the leader of the South. You are more numerous, you are more fierce, you are bold, and you are brave. We are few, we are tiring, we are running out of food. We have decided to ask for peace. The northern warriors stood and listened. Victory was in their grasp. Why should the northern warriors ever agree to peace? Then the last image in that story. We have captured your women and children. We have captured your old, enfeebled men. We plan to kill your women and children. We plan to kill your ancient ones. 200 warriors are poised and ready at the bow. We are making you an offer. What you must do in return for peace. For every child, for every female, for every old man we deliver to you, one of your best and ablest warriors must die in their stead. We will release 200 captives on your word. Now, what do you say to our offer of future peace? Well, there are 4 of the 7 legends which Pauline Johnson thinks about as she's thinking about her entire life. So how do the legends of Chief Joe's ancestors speak to Chief Joe? And how did Chief Joe's legends speak to the main character, Pauline Johnson? And how do the legends of Pauline Johnson speak to me, the author of this novel? And how do these same legends speak to you, the reader of this novel? I used to go to church with my mother. Together, along with the entire congregation, we spoke the words of the book of Angican prayer. We have done those things which we ought not to have done. We have left undone those things which we ought to have done, and there is no health in us. My mother enjoyed the fact that these words, these exact words, had been spoken by her ancestors all the way back to 1611. And so did I. However, a complex process of image sharing was taking place. I was not the same person as my mother, as she was not the same person as her ancestors. Her personality and her experiences, my personality and my experiences made us both the heirs of our ancestors and individuals at the same time. My mother and I shared some of our thoughts. My mother and I did not share some of our thoughts. We interpreted the words of our ancestral heritage in light of our own experiences and in our own time. In chapter 14 of this novel, the main character thinks about this process, the complex process of sharing and not sharing at the same time. On page 107, she thinks, visiting Chief Joe's grave, soon I will join you in the great beyond. These were your legends, now they are mine. Soon others will claim them as theirs. Legends are stories that we tell of who we are. Generations have scattered these seeds across the land. An ancestral heritage dies if it is not renewed and re-experienced in the times in which we live and in the sensibilities with which we respond to our own experience. It is in this way that the legends of Chief Joe's ancestors live in Chief Joe. It is in this way that the legends live as he passes them on to Pauline Johnson, to me, and to you. Now, the novel, once again, is Pauline Johnson. Upside down, Know Who I Am, a novel by John Passfield. It's available on Amazon. There's more information there. It's available on my publisher's website, I'm getting mixed up here. My publisher's website, rocksmillspress.com. rocksmillspress.com. On my website, johnpassfield.ca, johnpassfield.ca. There's 2 free books. A planning notebook, the idea, the structure, the writing, all with comments as I work my way through that process. Also a journal for free access. Polishing the rough draft, 50,000 words, trying to make it better by choosing better words. What do I think of this particular novel, of the novels I've written so far, of novels in general? What is a novel? What does it do? What does it add to the culture and so on? So 2 free books there just for popping them up on the screen at my website, johnpassfield.ca. Lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.